Well, even though I'm doing this after Murder on the Orient Express has come out, I still want to complete my Walking With reviews, since Kenneth Branagh, who directs and stars in Murder on the Orient Express, he also narrated the entire Walking With saga, and so this is why I'm reviewing them, and we close it off today with Walking With Monsters. Basically, Walking With Monsters is the conclusion to the entire Walking With saga. It all ends here, or really in this case it all began here, because Walking With Monsters shows life before the dinosaurs, showing how our very earliest ancestors started developing the adaptations that we would grow to have today. Conceptually, this is a fantastic idea, exploring even weirder and even more bizarre creatures that the previous shows didn't cover. And it's decent. It's good. Nowhere near great. In fact, I'd probably say Walking With Monsters is the weakest of the trilogy when you compare it to Walking With Dinosaurs and Walking With Beasts. Now let me start off with the good first. For one, the creatures are very well realized. They got some of the best creatures to showcase on this show. You have one of the very first fish to have ever evolved, some of the first really big amphibians. You have a fish that can basically flop itself onto land, giant insects and other bugs, Dimetrodon, Edaphosaurus, even the Gorgonopsid is amazing in this show. This is probably one of the coolest creatures in prehistory in my opinion, the Gorgonopsid. I'd probably say that the Gorgonopsid is Inostransevia. They never say it, they just call it the Gorgonopsid, but I believe that's what the creature is. And of course, Kenneth Branagh's narration is still really on point. Now, all of this I feel like does save the show, but I still do feel like there are quite a few problems with the show. For one, the format for Walking With Monsters is very different from Walking With Dinosaurs and Walking With Beasts. Those shows had a specific formula going on, focus on one period of time in one episode in one location, unless the story needs it to go into different locations. Like for example, the Walking With Dinosaurs episode, Giant of the Skies, where basically the Ornithocheiros had to make a worldwide journey. But however, Walking With Monsters jumps through different times and locations very rapidly, almost to a pretty distracting level, because the first two shows did not have that format. They just stuck with one period and one time in one episode. Plus, Walking With Dinosaurs and Walking With Beasts each had 6 episodes, whereas with Walking With Monsters, there's only 3 episodes. Why didn't they just go for the 6? In fact, the real main problem I have for Walking With Monsters is that it feels rushed. From the fact that there's only 3 episodes, to the fact that they bounce through time very rapidly, to even the production value itself being kind of rushed. Because with the first 2 shows, it clearly looked like a documentary, and they would really have angles to where only, a documentary kind of style would get. But with Walking With Monsters, there are a lot of point of view shots that don't really make it feel like a documentary, and I honestly don't know why they did that, to be honest. Sometimes the CGI is the best that the entire saga has had so far, but other times it's arguably the worst CGI they've had so far. The reason why I feel like a lot of the CGI doesn't work is because it doesn't feel like it flows naturally with the environment. I mean, look at these shots right here. I mean, when you look at the background, the CGI really stands out. Where even though you can tell in Walking With Beasts that the creatures were CGI, it flowed a little bit more naturally. But with Walking With Monsters, they just look like they're not supposed to be there. I mean, I've always said this, you can almost always tell when you see something that's CGI. Even some of the greatest CGI effects in movies today have, CGI that we can tell is CGI. But for me, what matters with CGI is, does it look real enough for me to buy into the story? Like, does it work well enough, and is it incorporated with the live action stuff well enough for me to be sucked into the effect, even though I know I'm looking at CGI? And with movies like Jurassic Park, Gravity, The Jungle Book, all of these movies have CGI where, even though, we know what CGI looks like because our eyes have been trained to see it, it still works really well because they took a lot of time to make sure the CGI blends in very well with the live action stuff. So therefore we can get into the effect. With Walking With Monsters, it feels like I'm always being taken out of the effect. Because, like I said before, I feel like the show must have been rushed or something, considering the very short number of episodes and the different format. It feels like the compositors for the CGI didn't have enough time to really let us get sucked into it. They didn't have enough time for the CGI to blend very well with the live action stuff. And another mistake they had when doing the CGI, there are way too many CGI close-ups. Way too many. Now, Walking with Dinosaurs and Walking with Beasts had some, and while Walking with Dinosaurs, you know, I still don't think the CGI in that show worked, but at least with those two shows, they did have a lot of practical effects going on. But with Walking with Monsters, not only are there a lot of very obvious close-up shots of CGI creatures, which don't even fit with this documentary style, because, like I said, these angles wouldn't really be shot with a documentary show, but for some reason, even when they do cut to a practical effect, it still doesn't buy it for me, because they're so close up, and I mean like really, really close-up shots of the practical effects to where you can't see a single thing outside of that. Like, why not have more wide shots of the practical effects? I mean, it doesn't have to be from like 20 feet or whatever, but it's a lot better than having the creatures be this close to the screen to where you can't really tell what's going on. But however, like I said before, some of those shots do look really good. In fact, some of those shots are probably some of the best CGI shots in the entire saga. But it's just a lot of the other effects just don't mesh well with the live action, because even though they don't have as many technical errors when it comes to the models, for example, the whole body parts going into other body parts stuff, like, that's not in Walking with Monsters. That stuff has been fixed, but it's just the compositing that was the problem. The compositing just doesn't let me give into the effect, because when you look at the live action backgrounds, the CGI things that are in front of the live action background stand out like a sore thumb. Even the way this show ends, I feel like could have been done a little bit better, because while it is pretty clever to sort of bookend Walking with Monsters with Walking with Dinosaurs, for some reason they bookended it with the second episode of Walking with Dinosaurs, the episode Time of the Titans. I don't know if this is just me, but I feel like it would have been a little bit more clever if they bookended the third episode, the final episode of Walking with Monsters, with the first episode of Walking with Dinosaurs, episode New Blood, like having the Coelophysis and the Placerius. Like, wouldn't it be a little bit more interesting if they bookended Walking with Monsters with the very first episode of Walking with Dinosaurs? But no, for some reason they went with the second episode, and yeah, I get it, those dinosaurs are more popular, but I just feel like from a narrative point of view, it would make more sense to bookend Walking with Monsters with the very first episode of Walking with Dinosaurs. So yeah, for me, Walking with Monsters is probably the least of the entire Walking With saga. It has a lot of storytelling problems, especially with the fact that the narrative of this show doesn't match the shows that came before it, and also the CGI can be very problematic when it comes to the compositing. I'm not saying the show is bad. It's not. It's a good show. It's a decent show. But, however, it doesn't reach the levels of what Walking with Beasts was, and not even really Walking with Dinosaurs. So, I'm going to give Walking with Monsters a 7 out of 10. Well, that does it for the Walking With saga. At some point in the future, I might consider reviewing Chased by Dinosaurs, Sea Monsters, Prehistoric Park, all that good stuff. Oh yeah, there's also Walking with Cavemen. I mean, I don't know if I'll review that or not. I mean, tell me in the comment section if you want me to do that. But after all of those shows, at least I know that the entire saga has been contained, and, you know, nothing has ever screwed that up. Right? Well, whatever the case, what do you think of Walking with Monsters? Have you ever seen Walking with Monsters? Check out the entire Walking With saga if you can. It's very engaging. Whatever the case may be, let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a like, share the video so we can get the channel circulated, and if you want to see more, click this.